This episode of Simple Civics Greenville County is brought to you by Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, providing free books to children 0 to 5 throughout Greenville County. To sign up, visit greenvillefirststeps.org/free books. That's greenvillefirststeps.org/free books.
I think most of us have had that experience of driving through a neighborhood or looking at a new development and wondering, who actually makes the decisions about how our community grows? Often it feels like those choices happen behind closed doors or are reserved for experts and politicians. But the truth is, much of the work that shapes our quality of life is guided by volunteer citizens, people just like you who decided to move from the sidelines to a seat at the table. I'm Katy Smith with Greater Good Greenville, and on this episode of Simple Civics Greenville County, I talk with Joanna Reese. Joanna is a local realtor with Keller Williams Drive who saw the rising challenges of housing affordability for her clients and decided to get involved. That journey led her to the Greenville County Redevelopment Authority Board, and now she's on a mission to help other residents understand that their perspective is exactly what our local boards and commissions need. We're going to talk about what it's actually like to serve, how you can find a board that matches your passion, and the simple steps you can take to apply and make your voice heard. I'm glad to be joined by Joanna Reese, who is a realtor and someone who's taking her professional experience and lending it to a board or commission with the Greenville County Redevelopment Authority. Thanks so much for being here, Joanna.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, tell us about the way you decided to lend this experience. I think your backstory is you saw people struggling and you said, there has to be a way I can get involved to help. So tell us about it.
Well, my background, I have been heavily involved in nonprofits and in that sector for my whole life, really. But in the 2020s, a lot of things were shifting, and talking with so many people who were struggling to find affordable housing. And that means something different to everybody. Affordable housing used to be considered, it would connotate a slum or, run down old apartments. But affordable housing now is where you and I live. It's where we all should have access to a home that shouldn't be more than 30% of our household income. So right now, even for teachers, police officers, nurses, there's not a lot of affordable housing, and even less if you're looking at home ownership. I am very passionate about building generational wealth. As a single mom of 3, I want to make sure that my kids have options and stability as they grow up. And truly, the only real way to build wealth in our current world is getting your own home and buying real estate. So as I was leaning into that world and trying to navigate it myself, I bought my first home in 22, and it was a difficult process, more difficult than it should have been. And with someone with college education and 15 years owning a marketing agency and all the background, it was difficult for me to navigate. And looking back, I left a lot of money on the table because of things I didn't know. I probably could have had $20K back in my pocket if I had known what I know now. And so I think after having done that, wanting to be able to figure out what I missed, what's happening, and why is it so hard, just started asking questions. I'm very curious by nature, and more questions were hitting dead ends, or people were, you talk to them, and they're sending you somewhere else, and you kind of go in circles. And so a lot of the dead ends seem to be pointing towards try talking to the county council's board. And so, as I've mentioned, I don't do anything part ways. So rather than just asking, I was like, all right, it looks like there's seats coming open. I'm applying and jumping in. And very quickly, as soon as I was appointed to the board, I wanted to make sure that I was able to fully understand what was happening. So Joe, the executive director, offered to do a drive-through of Greenville County to show really decades of what this organization has been doing in the upstate, and to understand where there's affordable rentals, affordable homeownership, senior housing. There's so many layers to it that I had no idea. And then after I had a visual and on-the-ground understanding, I asked to sit down with the senior accountant and be like, run me through where is money coming? Where is it going? And I'm a skeptic. And so was really looking, is there holes? Is there places that this program isn't effective or not doing its job? And what I kept finding was the opposite, that they're doing an incredible job of taking a dollar and figuring out ways to leverage dollars from nonprofits and corporations and individuals to really impact times $100. But there is just a shortage of funds. Greenville's growing at a rapid pace. And with that growth, it is hard to keep up affordable housing for those who live and work here. And so, yeah, that's, I guess, what kind of brought me into the boardroom initially. And then from there, just following the curiosity.
That is a great story. And it really shows why we have citizens on boards or commissions for public or quasi-public entities, because you are there to be eyes and a voice for the people of the county, and you getting in there as a skeptic and saying, wait a minute, things are looking good. I mean, that's what your neighbors would want of you. So thank you for doing that.
Right. So as I was asking questions, so many of those questions, I would start with one organization who would then send me to a different one, to a different one. A lot of people saying, oh, we only work in this specific sector, or we only touch this part of it. And so as I was chasing all the rabbit trails, it seemed that a lot of them were leading back to local government, looking at county council. And even that, they have so many boards. I wasn't even sure which one to apply for or talk to. There were two I had kind of narrowed down to and planned to investigate both. And probably more by luck than wisdom that I landed on GCRA versus Human Relations. Both of those boards do a lot in the sector for affordable housing, workforce housing, and I wasn't really sure what they did different, and no one seemed to be able to answer that. So yeah, once I realized it seemed like if I got in those rooms, I could at least get access to the answers, and that was my biggest goal.
So many listeners might hear that term, redevelopment authority, and think it sounds highly technical or very bureaucratic. But I find the folks at GCRA to be so accessible, passionate, caring about what they do. Can you break down what GCRA actually does and what a typical meeting looks like as a board member?
Yeah. I had no idea what they truly did when I came in, because like you said, it sounds overwhelming. It sounds very technical. And even when I asked questions about, like, tell me more, it was, we leverage financial investment opportunities from federal funds. And it was just like, what are you talking about? But yeah, once I kind of got in the room and just started asking question after question, what it boils down to is decades ago, the federal government began to realize that there needed to be HUD, Housing and Urban Development, which is a federal agency, established for fair housing laws, for access to housing, to ensure the rights of citizens across the country were protected. And part of that directs where federal funds need to go. So rural areas often need a little extra support. They don't have as much coming in through their tax system. And so with all of that complexity, I see it in a visual like water trickling down, and each of it's kind of going to its own bucket. And each of those buckets has so many strings and requirements to make sure that it is used correctly, that there is no fraud or waste or abuse. And so because of that, they said every county needs to set up an entity to help oversee where those funds are being designated. So GCRA was that board incorporated 50, 60 years ago. And their job is to take all of those funds and figure out how to leverage it for maximum impact for our counties. So some are designated to municipalities like Travelers Rest or Greer, and then others are countywide. Some of the funds are designated for restoring maybe homes for elderly people who can age in place. Some of the funds are earmarked for, especially here in Greenville, the mill communities, for example. Some of those, the infrastructure under the streets was put in over 100 years ago and is so outdated that it's already beginning to have problems. It's backing up, or there's not enough access to continue to build and add to those. And so rather than waiting for a disaster, GCRA is able to say, hey, we have these earmarked funds. We can come in and replace this infrastructure. And now this old rundown field can become a thriving neighborhood park or community. So I think for me, it was the realization they're not there taking all of our tax dollars and putting it into some corporation. I think a lot of those, when we hear technical terms, we assume corporation. But for someone who's worked in corporate, private, nonprofit, education, I've worked in all the sectors. When I go into GCRA, the people, the staff, the team operate like a nonprofit. Everyone there cares deeply about the lives of Greenville County citizens and affordable housing. When we had a couple positions within the board or within the organization open up, we were talking at the board about how to hire, and a couple of the staff were like, actually, we can just pick this up. We got a little bandwidth. We'll just take this on and we'll save those funds. We don't need to hire right now. They're very much aligned with the vision of what it's meant to be as a quasi-government board. Yes, function like a corporation in watching how can we be more sustainable? How can we build more long-term equity? And it's really incredible how well they're able to leverage all those funds.
That's outstanding. How great. So folks listening to you hear your passion and also hear that you have some expertise, both from your lived experience of challenges in buying your first home, but you're also a realtor, so you understand the industry a little bit. A common barrier for folks as they're considering serving on a board or commission is that feeling, I'm not qualified enough, or I don't have the right background. From your experience, what are the most important traits or perspectives that a resident needs to bring to the table as they consider being a good board member?
I love that question. So after becoming a board member and drinking through the fire hose for a few months to kind of figure out how everything worked, I quickly went from the skeptical critique in the boardroom to one of the biggest advocates. And in doing so, I think really quickly began to share online about some of what I was seeing and what was happening here locally. And more and more people, especially in millennial age group, I don't believe we really had civics education. And so a lot of people were, how did you get there? What did you do? And I'm like, I literally just applied. And so realized so many people struggle with that first step. And so my biggest thing is I have now begun to help train people to become board members for any of these boards. So this summer, I plan to do a cohort, I guess, where we can talk through all the different boards that are out there and what they mean. Because like I said before, I didn't even know what I was really signing up for. But the greatest thing that I have found is the number one thing you need to be a great board member on any board, government or otherwise, is curiosity. If you are truly there to understand more, learn, and ask good questions, there's a lot of people who will join boards wanting to come in and show off their expertise and add to their resume or look good, and those board members usually just waste a seat. Truly, to be a great board member, you do not need to have financial experience or business experience. The best boards are going to have an eclectic group, or there will be some of those people at the table, but we also need just some critical thinkers who are living in this world, who are dealing with needing transit or dealing with the development in their neighborhood, changing the whole feel or whatever it is that's happening in your world, not able to find a livable wage. There's a board that touches that. And so rather than letting people who have more experience, who've been there for 30 years, sit in that room and make the decisions, we really need people who are on the front lines dealing with these and facing that and understand it, to be in those rooms and ask the questions that other people don't know to ask. Unless you're a millennial, there's a lot of things that you haven't experienced of having done, all the pieces and not being able to afford basic living. That's a millennial lived experience that everyone's starting to, but I have found I wish more young people would come and join these boards, even at the risk of being embarrassed, even at the risk of feeling like you don't know what to say or do. I promise I felt like a complete moron those first few months. I had no idea, really, like I said, what the board even did. But I'm really good at embarrassing myself, I think. I'm very good at just, despite fear, just speaking out, I think. And so that served me well. But I believe that if people are willing to come in and just ask questions until you understand, you can dramatically impact the board and the people of Greenville County and the upstate.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree, having served on many nonprofit boards. Asking good faith questions that are really seeking to make the organization and the work stronger, and recognizing that you're a part of the team. And in the end, that board speaks with one voice, and being a part of that voice, that heart is the most important thing in serving on a board. Well, since you've joined the board, you've learned a lot, you've seen a lot. Is there a specific project or decision that you've been part of that made you think, this is why I'm here? What's been one of the most rewarding things you've seen or done?
Wow. There's I think a lot, and it's hard to narrow down to one. I think especially so when I came on, there's a monthly board meeting, and then there's also everybody's on a committee. So every month we have one board meeting, one committee meeting, and I've been in the admin committee, which is a lot more looking into the finances, the nuts, the bolts, the budgets, which I enjoy. And on the same time, the ops committee is a lot more into the actual daily, when is this home opening? When is this affordable community going to be available? And so what I like to do is occasionally go to one of like the open houses, the ribbon cuttings, and be able to watch the look on the faces of people who are given opportunities that they did not think were possible is the greatest joy. When this single mom with two kids who's been renting an apartment that was 50% of her income and now is going to own a home with her kids in a safe area, and it's now affordable with less than 30% of her income, it is life-changing. And for years, people will come back. People that I wasn't here when they originally got their home still are coming back around and thanking the board and the organization, because it truly changes not their life, but everyone around them. It ripples their kids and everyone around. It's incredible what happens when people just have access to safe housing.
I love that. It really underscores the wonderful partnership of local government with federal government
Yeah.
and with citizens, average residents, and smart professionals who have technical skills in that business to do something like give keys to a family.
I want to emphasize not giving keys, because so many people still have fallen into the trap of thinking that government programs are handouts, when that is maybe in some other area, but certainly not the case here. The whole idea is not about creating things to give. It is about creating opportunities for people who are ready for them and need them. There's just so few opportunities. And so I love watching local government create systems and processes so that people who are working hard every day, saving, making the right decisions, don't start to feel hopeless. That they can say, I know if I do these things, I can buy a home in a few years. I know I can feed my kids. And I think that is where government has failed for a while. And I think people are ready to get back involved and say, let's make government work for us.
That is great. Okay, so I hope listeners are fired up now and ready to serve. What are the actual logistics to getting involved? And I know this is another of your favorite things to talk about. Where do they go to see vacancies? What advice do you have when they're filling out the application? Give us the behind the scenes.
Yes. So the first thing to do is go to county, just if you search in Google, county council, boards and commissions, there's going to be a page that loads. And any county and government website typically is not super user friendly. So when you get there, there's 3 hyperlinks. The first one says county council appointed boards and commissions. Once you click that, it's going to load a spreadsheet basically of all the different boards and commissions available in Greenville County. And right now, if you click it, it's probably going to show all zeros for vacancies. The board's policy is written at that page so you can see as well, but they twice a year have board appointments. So the next round is coming up in the fall. And what I advise people to do is, if you're wanting to join a board, at least 6 months in advance, start kind of making those plans so that you don't miss the opportunity, since it is scheduled. So you can go ahead and start reading about which boards. Before you apply, you are asked to attend at least one board meeting. However, I've been really excited. It's been cool as I've been recruiting people for boards and commissions, so many people are starting to go and visit multiple boards and be like, I want to figure out the board personality. I want to figure out what organization I'm going to best fit in. So definitely, even if you don't want to run for a board or commission, I feel like this is just one of those great opportunities people don't know exist. Anybody in Greenville County can come to any of these board meetings. You can just show up and attend and learn and hear what's happening at those tables. So definitely get in the boardroom, take a seat at the table, hear what's happening. And then when it opens up for applications, I believe in September, there's a 1-month window where you are able to submit your application online. You can only apply to one board. So a few people were like, I'm going to apply to 3. Once you apply to one, it blocks you. You can't apply. So make sure you pick your one board that you want to participate in. Then, after the application window closes, there's a month for the county council to review applications, and they usually will host a in-person meet and greet. You are invited usually in an evening, let's say like a Tuesday evening around 6. And there's about an hour where they will allow anyone who's applied for a board to just introduce themselves to council. Not all of council comes. It's pretty informal, but basically just getting up. When I was applying, didn't really know what I was applying for still. So basically just said, I'm a business owner here in the upstate. I'm a mother of 3 kids in Greenville County schools, and I'm a homeowner, and I really care about my community, and I want to help make it a better place. And so I think that is truly what they're looking for. County council then takes all the applicants and they make the decision about who goes to those boards. So the biggest thing is showing up and figuring out where you're going to be able to really make that impact. So when you do find the list of boards and commissions on the website, you can hear about them, but they don't all list how often they meet. So that's another one of those things that's important. When you reach out and find where they're meeting and when they're meeting, be sure to ask how often they meet, how often board members are needed to show up for committees or other activities, and make sure that you are in a place that you can truly show up. If you are going to be on a board, we need you to actually be there in the seat every time to help with those decisions. So making sure whether it's once a quarter, and then there's some that are maybe it's weekly. So making sure you find the right board that fits your schedule.
Wonderful. That's a very helpful overview. And we'll put links in the show notes to Greenville County's information. Now, I'll note that several of our cities also have boards or commissions that they appoint that are a different process. So poke around. If you live in a city, go to your city's website as well as to Greenville County's website to see if there's something of interest to you that might have a different process that you wish to pursue. I'll note also there are state-appointed boards and commissions, which is a different thing altogether, but lots of opportunities to serve.
One thing I'll mention as well is if you are trying to figure out one of these boards or how to apply or the process, a lot of people don't know who to ask, and it's not obvious anywhere on the website. But with my curiosity and obnoxious question lining, I was able to kind of track backwards. The clerks to council are really helpful. They are the ones who are consolidating this information, getting it from the boards, putting it to the website, and they want to see great people filling these roles. So if you have a board that you're wanting, when's the next board meeting? Where do they meet? Where do I go? If you want those answers, if you call the clerk to council, they will be able to help point you to the right person and get you to the right place.
Well, Joanna, this was tremendously helpful, and I can't tell you how grateful I am to have someone with your passion and interest, not just for Greenville County Redevelopment Authority and all the work that it does, but for helping your fellow residents engage in the important work of government. I really appreciate you so much, and thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share this and let more people take their seats at the table. The more of us who truly care and are willing to show up with curiosity, Greenville is just going to continue to become a better place.
Hi, Simple Civics Greenville County listeners, Nathaniel here. If you've made it this far, then we think you'll really love our newsletter. Sign up for bonus content, updates, and more right in your inbox. Look for the link in the description that says newsletter to sign up, or visit us at simpleCivicsGreenvilleCounty.org. Find the link in the menu that says newsletter and sign up there. We'll see you again next week.